Yeah.
That's cool though. That's cool though. So, again, we can just dive right into it. So, I'm talking with Seth Kimberlin of Andretti Global Motorsports, which when you talk about Andretti, that is the most, in my opinion, if not the most, one of the iconic names in motorsports, obviously with Mario Andretti, Michael Andretti, and the rest of the Andretti family. But Seth is somebody that I came across on LinkedIn actually with the idea of this podcast and just kind of seeing his background. He's done a lot of really cool things and you've done like, I feel like, you didn't want to be in motorsports originally. You didn't start out to be in motorsports, but now you're so head deep into it, man. But first and foremost, Seth, thank you again for jumping on with me. I really appreciate the time and, again, hearing your story is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it, and I'm glad you reached out as well. And yeah, happy to tell a little bit of the background and approach of how I ended up where I am today. Truly blessed, obviously, to take part in what we're doing here at Andretti Global. Part of seven racing series on a global spectrum. Those entail IndyCar, Indy Next, which is the feeder series into IndyCar. Also incorporated into Formula E, which is a worldwide open wheel electric series. We actually just finished in London this past weekend. So that season's completed. Extreme E, which soon to be Extreme H, but all electric series that races globally as well, focused on philanthropic opportunities within regions that have been impacted. But next year, they're actually shifting to hydrogen, which is going to be quite interesting. Very much,
Really?
yeah. So very much a sustainable focus. It's the first of its kind from a race perspective. What's really unique about that race series is that so we have a male and a female driver, and they split seat time. So
Very
during
cool.
we'll kind of pull strategy together as to who's going to go and who's going to come in, midway through the race. It's frankly, it's really interesting. Excited to get down to Phoenix. They'll actually be racing down that way at the end of the year.
So elaborate just a little bit more. So it's powered by hydrogen, but what kind of cars or series? Like what's like, is it stock cars? Like, is it a open wheel?
It's actually, so imagine like, it's like a Hummer looking vehicle, essentially. It's a big SUV, but yeah, so they all travel actually by ship, which is unique. The St. Helena
Whoa.
is the name of it. And they actually have
Okay.
scientists that are on the ship as well. But they, their biggest thing is to not leave a footprint for the world. And it's focused primarily on doing better for the global landscape. So, yeah, really unique, really cool motorsport series to be a part of. But yeah, so those are kind of our main ventures. And then we've got some joint ventures in IMSA. So Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti, we're incorporated into that. We've got a Mexico racing series called Supercopa. So with Michelle Jourdain down there, we've got a series there as well. We're in Australia, actually. So Australia Supercars.
Supercars?
Yeah,
Yeah, let's go. Those are wild. Those things are so cool.
it's amazing. And talking with the team down in Australia, I've really learned a lot, understanding what all that entails. It's basically one of the biggest sporting series actually in Australia.
Yeah.
It's awesome to hear. So yeah, so we've got a lot of that, and obviously, hopefully, more to come. So that's our goal.
Dude, that's insane. Like even doing a little bit of background, just knowing who Andretti is and what they've done from my perspective, just seeing the dive into the environmental side of things in racing, and obviously it's like it's been happening, the hybrid race right now in regards to between Formula One and IndyCar with their new changes this season. It's really cool to see. So is something, and we'll touch on this, I think, a little bit more. Actually, you know what? We'll parking lot this question, because I think diving into kind of the future of racing and that sustainability is key for sure. And I'm curious more on how Andretti and their goals with that. But first and foremost, man, when we were talking, you come from a small town. How did you go from such a small town to now a global company?
Yeah, it's when I look back at it, it's insane, the journey, I guess. But in my eyes, there's a plan for everything. So yeah, very small town, Plymouth, Ohio. I think a little over 1,000 people. It's actually technically a village, I guess, per se. But yeah, there's actually two villages that come together, make a school right in the middle of the cornfield. I ended up graduating with around 50 kids at the
In
time.
in the cornfield?
And basically, like children like feel like,
Hey,
you know,
shout out to Plymouth, Ohio. Let's go.
yeah, put them on the map. So yeah, so grew up there, played football. I was into sports young. My dad growing up, he would watch NASCAR. We would watch all sorts of things. Grew up a big Ohio State fan as well. So stoked for the season to come, looking promising. But yeah, so ended up doing that, and really what I focused on mainly, it's crazy, is I guess as a young kid, you don't really care what you do on the education side going forward. I was just primarily focused on playing football.
Yeah.
Ended up
As
getting
most young athletes are, man. I mean, you're
yeah.
so focused on sports, and then you graduate and you're like, oh, whoa, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, I was primarily selecting schools as to who was recruiting me, and ended up at a college called Defiance College. It's a Division III college, very, very small as well, which I really liked, because of, again, growing up in a small community. This also felt like a very small community as well. I actually
Yeah.
originally started out, so I played football there. Originally started out as an athletic trainer. I'm trying to become an athletic trainer, I guess I should say. Kind of started to get into it, and it wasn't my vibe, and I wasn't really
Yeah.
feeling. And luckily, one of my professors there was in the sports business side of the house, and we got to speaking a little bit about opportunities and what sports encompasses, and just I immediately fell in love.
Yeah.
Just the passion around business in a sporting realm and sector was just of interest.
You can continue that teamwork, it's like literally like taking that mindset of team into the business sector, which is so important for sure.
It is. It 100% is. And that's, I think, a lot of what I enjoy doing, and really the experience that you're providing to people as well as yourself, right? Kind of just caught my eye and really made me fall in love with it. So I went through and, coming out of college, my senior year, I ended up applying to probably 100 internships. And that's one thing
Wow.
that, I would suggest a little bit even sooner. I was, focused so much on playing sports and working two jobs during college that I never really had the chance to go out and do proper internships.
Mm.
Kind of felt like I was a little bit behind the eight ball. So, to those that are listening, I would suggest, getting out there, one, networking completely as much as you can in college. I mean, that's huge. Creating a link. I didn't have a LinkedIn until we got in college, and we actually held a class on how to even build it. I was
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Facebook. What am
Yeah.
I doing here? I have no
Right.
clue.
Right.
So,
So true though. It's so true. I mean,
it
this
is.
is like the advice why I want you're talking, man, because like you're such a good example of literally like again the athlete but falling into this but if you put in the effort and you get your foot in the door, so much can happen.
It 100% can. And as you get that experience, I mean, and that's what a lot of the employers are looking for too, is experience, and where your background and things. I think, obviously being a collegiate athlete, student athletes, they tend to, have a nice resume against that, because most employers understand the time, the effort, and everything that comes into that. So I think that also helped me out a little bit. But my main premise was, okay, I'm going to go work in the NFL. I'm going to go stay in football. That's my passion. I'm all about it. And I fell flat on my face, honestly.
Mm.
I could not figure out what I was doing. My main goal was to not be and there's nothing wrong with this by any means, but personal goal of mine was to not have to move back home coming out
Yeah.
of it. And
Yeah,
so,
man.
actually I think I ended up getting maybe three internship opportunities, but the one that paid I took, and that
Yeah.
was Kentucky Speedway in Sparta, Kentucky, another very, very small town.
Far from where you were at that point, like I mean, from school
Yeah,
or whatnot.
it was probably a solid 6 hour drive.
Oh, all right. So good amount. Yeah.
Yeah, so Northwest
Wow.
Ohio was where Defiance is, and then
Mhm.
Kentucky Speedway was just probably 45 to an hour south of Cincinnati, right between Louisville and Cincinnati's. Funny story enough, so I had not been down there. I found an apartment online. I took it because it was in my budget of the small amount of money that I was going to make. And I had packed my truck up and went to graduation. My parents came with me. And as soon as I got my diploma, said my goodbyes, I was on the road down to Kentucky to start the internship the next day. So,
That's awesome. Yeah. No, I
yeah,
think, but you said something right there that like resonated me like a little bit ago, but like just that setting that one goal. And I think like there is, and again, nothing wrong with living with your parents because I have a handful of people in my life that do that, but it is like setting just mini goals, maybe like just like that one day at a time, 1 week at a time, like, and you set that goal of like, okay, I don't want to go back home. So I'm going to do whatever I can to avoid that. And I think like with that drive and just knowing that goal, that's going to lead you to motivate you to just be like, okay, whatever I can do to scrounge up or get an opportunity to like not go back home. I've definitely been there, man. It's like, it's a scary feeling, but it's a liberating slash like, again, if you're the right person, you could be very driven and help you grow, man. So that's a huge point. I think like just set some like base level goals and work on those, and all of a sudden a lot of goals will be attained. So from Kentucky, man, you could get into NASCAR, which, again, like how did you go about getting like how did you get that internship? I know you said like, you reached out to a handful of folks and this one, paid. What was that process like just for, people listening?
Yeah, so through the process, it was a lot. It was, the biggest things from what I would tell, listeners is that one, I mentioned LinkedIn earlier, but working with professors or those around you, or even people that you connect with on resume building, right? So ensuring that your resume is built up properly. You're not, at that time, you think, oh, if I have a 2 to 3 page resume, it looks great. It really doesn't.
Right. Yeah. You're
Always
literally
keeping your
college.
resume to one page is key but from what I've learned. So I worked hard with a lot of career coaches during that time, and mainly
Oh,
just
great.
yeah. So
That's huge.
got that dialed in, but through the process of interviewing, went through a lot of interviewing processes as well, mock interviews with my teammates, mock interviews with my student cohorts, and just really kind of focused in on how to best practice a lot of that.
That's awesome. That's
And
huge.
it is huge. It is huge. And luckily, like I said, truly got blessed to join down there as a ticket sales representative or intern, I should say. And
Let's
that,
go.
that in itself is a grind. But,
Yeah.
one thing I did learn too, like from what you just kind of mentioned with goals is, even going from a small town to college to Kentucky it was a lot of uncomfortableness because I didn't know anybody anywhere. I didn't know anybody when I moved to, I didn't know anybody when I moved to Kentucky or even so on and so forth in my career. And a lot of the times that's uncomfortable, but you have to learn to live to be uncomfortable to grow, right? It's like
Embrace the suck. Yeah.
embrace the suck. It's like working out.
Yeah.
You got to stretch the muscle, tear the muscle in order to build the muscle. And to get out of that comfort zone, that's the only way you're going to grow. And you have to be
Dude.
willing
Heck
to do
yeah.
the things that others aren't willing to.
I do. I agree, man. And I think like again, this is just the best advice for anybody nowadays, man, because it's just like so. I've literally had a meeting earlier with the CEO, and we were just talking about the same thing in regards to people coming out of school and applying. Again, like people not doing any research on the company that they're applying for, not going through the proper like skills, whether it's in college or hey, maybe you didn't do this in college, but taking there's a thing called YouTube, like looking at proper ways to interview and it's just like I think you nailed it with like the resume thing. Like, I mean, as a business owner, and I'm sure you get people you interview too for these positions, and it's like, if you're somebody young, I think you nailed it. It's like we know you don't have a lot of experience. How can you prepare for that interview? Do research on the person you're talking to. Do research on the position. Like, know what you're about to go into. Just be you. Like, I think that's like the biggest thing that I look for out of people nowadays. But it is wild because it's kind of, and again, I don't know where it is in the mentality of folks, but it's like, I got a degree. What do I get? And it's like, yo, I much rather see the person that literally was working 2 jobs, going to school, figured out an internship, because that's the route I was in, man. And I think like if you just learn to embrace the suck a little bit, which I had to, it sucked, it really did, but it's nice, man. You put in the hard work, and that's what I like. I learned how to do hard work through that, and I never thought I could do that. So I hear what you are saying 1000%. I think like anybody listening, that just like get your foot in the door and just try.
Yeah, and that's it, right? It's trying, and it's falling down 100 times to get back up 101,
Yeah,
right? And
totally, man.
that's the key. You're gonna get smacked in the mouth at times. You're gonna have to go through trials and tribulations, but that's the only way you learn, and that's the only way you grow.
Absolutely.
It's about taking those key learnings, in my opinion, doing something with that and doing something different to continue to grow yourself personally and professionally. Always take care of yourself personally as well. I think a lot of people forget to do so, especially in sports itself. You're working long hours and
Yeah.
it's there's been plenty of days where I'm even just forget to eat during the day because you're hustling. But you always got to take a step back, take care of yourself, but also ensure that professionally you're on the right pathway. And again, it goes back to setting those goals and what are the steps to achieve those goals, in my opinion.
I love it, man. No, I agree. Like, let's talk about something super tough, and that's selling tickets, because that's very uncomfortable, and it's I've been there. I sold hockey tickets to people in July, and they're like, "Go away! Why are you talking to me about hockey in South Carolina in July?"
Yeah.
But I think that's where you can really, like you were saying, grow, because like you either, and again, I didn't want to be in sales. It was just when you work in minor league sports, you're going to get tossed into a bunch of different jobs. And if you say no, that's not a good thing. I mean, and you just want to soak up so much. So I really actually like learned like to break through the uncomfortness of having season ticket holders yell at me because there was a new net installed behind the goal. I'm like, come on, man, like your kid can't catch a puck, but he's also not going to get hit by it. So talk to me about that. So you come into that as an intern, that process of, were you kind of thrown into the fire? Or are they like, hey, here's a script, go call people in a CRM? What did that look like?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there, quickly is the uncomfortability of it too, right? But yeah, they gave you a little bit of an overview, quickly learned the seating map of the what we'll call stadium for the NASCAR track, or the race track, I should say. And they kind of tell you the talking points, what's the core deals that you're selling, and hey, you got 100 calls to make in a day, make sure you're
Yeah.
tracking system. I don't care if you talk to anybody or not, really. Like, you just need to make these calls and try to push and push, push, push. And so, we ended up, I think there were six full-time individuals that I had worked with. And then on top of that, another five additional interns with me, and coming into it, it was calling people post race weekend. Even we would host race.
Wow.
Really only had one main, it was at the time Sprint Cup. And then following that, the following weekend, it was reaching out, talking about renewals. And hey, I know the race literally just ended a week ago, but what are you thinking about for the next season?
You
And
have the momentum there,
yeah,
you
we
have
did.
that's fresh on the mind,
Yeah, and it worked out well. But to your point, you get around Thanksgiving, Christmas, any other holiday, and they're like, why are you calling me? I don't care, And the
Yeah.
amount of people that you did find, just wondering why you're reaching out. One thing or actually a couple things I learned through that process was, again, getting uncomfortable. But two, we're all humans, and treating people with that respect. Don't be a robot. Don't call and be
Yeah.
reading directly off a script. It got to be a point where there was people that I would call once a month, even though I knew they weren't going to buy tickets, but I knew their family's name,
Relationships, man. Yeah.
all about building those relationships. And I would know their birthday. I'd call them and just say, hey, we're not going to talk anything about buying tickets. I just want to say happy birthday, right? And
That's sick. Yeah.
that's when you start to realize, and that's where I really started to realize, is like, in the business development realm, it's not about the asset that you're selling. It's about the experience, but the relationship and the emotional tie that you can create for those elements or assets that you are trying to pitch out to them. And to your point earlier, I didn't want to be in sales. I was like, I don't know what I'm selling. I've never sold anything in my life, but it taught me so much. And the one other piece of advice I would provide listeners, those that are maybe specifically looking to break into sports, is starting out from the sector of ticket sales is one of the best experiences that you can garner and gain, that will also provide you a trajectory to something even different than maybe you're wanting to do. And that's how I've kind of gotten to where I'm at today, luckily, which.
Yeah, man. No, that's again such great advice and a dope story, man. I like look at it as like almost the minor league like sports, or people jumping into that. It's like a great stepping stone to other careers in a way, because you can mold yourself. They're long hours, low pay in certain, leagues and stuff like that. But I think if you are passionate about just sports in general, that's what I knew. I just wanted to be in sports. I'm going to figure it out. And I literally went to like film and marketing and digital, whatever those degrees are at this time, because there's nothing related to it nowadays, man. But you know, that there was a flyer on the wall for like the local ECHL hockey team, needed an intern. And I was like, yes, like that was it. And I like literally from that led to an internship for a couple years. And then the guy that was like my mentor and a great friend still, like took a job with the Washington Nationals, and they like hit me up, and I was still finishing school, and they're like, we need you. You got to. And so like I took this job at 23 years old as a director of game operations for a minor league hockey team. No idea what I was doing, but like the guy, I had a good mentor. I failed forward. I asked questions. I learned a lot, and it led to another path and career. And I think like, again, just life is all about uncomfortableness. We live in such a time of like, everybody's comfort level is at an extreme, but at the end of the day, if you know how to, kind of pull your sleeves up and work hard, the rewards are going to be so much more than somebody that doesn't. And, at the end of the day, that's why people are in positions that they're in, because they worked hard and they put that effort in, man. So that's sick. So what led you after ticket sales? Like where was the next steps like into like a marketing realm? Like what
Well,
did that
it's
look like?
yeah, when I was really in the Kentucky Speedway space, I kind of got my feet wet in a lot of different sectors, and again, was
Okay.
truly there was a lot of opportunities there, which was great. And the one thing that's like, to your point is mentorships, and I found a lot of mentors there, and I ended up shifting up. I got hired on full time, moved into a role more so around client service. So right there was
Okay.
managed relationships with all of our major key partners that we had, all the way from the title partner to somebody that's just buying a suite, managing their assets and inventory, and being there on site during race weekends to ensure that they were taken care of. On top of that, I sold the facility. We sat on 1,100 acres, so I was also selling.
I was gonna ask you that, man. Like you can't
Yeah,
just have a race, to make the money all year.
that's it.
So
100%. So I had to find another way of bringing it in. We never really had a track rental program. So I was reaching out to car shows. I brought in Tough Mudder, fun
yeah.
runs, you name it, just to use the facility throughout the year. And that brought me into the space of understanding operations, understanding how to conduct logistics, work with local law enforcement to ensure safety of the public, and just so much. And that also allowed me to open up the doors to work with maybe players inside the space that I wouldn't necessarily need to be or
Yeah.
had the chance. So our operations team became close with them. Our security team became close with them. And you learn that, another point that I would make is get to know everybody in the organization. And it comes actually down to what my old collegiate football coach told me, and it still lives in my head to this day. You should know the person that is maybe picking up the trash or taking the trash out as much as you should know the name of the CEO of the company. And it's you
Yep.
treat everybody with the same exact respect. And that's what I did. And it kind of was a proof point for me that allowed me to understand how to work through things. And then when you find yourself in a pickle, you've got a full support system behind you that can assist in getting that going or helping solve that issue. So yeah, I did that, worked at business development, but I got to a point, I was still young in my career. I felt like that I kind of hit the ceiling and was looking for that next step. So I ended up finding an opportunity with a global marketing agency. So this is where I start to get more into the marketing side from
So how
sales.
did that
Right, sir.
did that really and so yeah, I apologize for cutting you off, but yeah, the whole thing that you just said from going from being a human being on the phone with people during ticket sales, I could see that those individuals above you were like, okay, we like because I was saying like your relationship status is going to lead right into corporate or sponsorships because of the way that you are going to treat those people. Now, did this job come from a relationship at the track, or is this something you kind of was like, I'm ready to move on and sought out?
It was kind of like I was ready to move on and sought out. And honestly, I was so close with, and I still am actually. I'm very close with a lot of the folks that I worked there. But one young lady basically became a second mom to me there. Her name's
That's
Tanya.
awesome.
So I'll give a shout out to Tanya. But she took me under her wing. I still actually hang out with her family to this day. They've been great.
That's awesome.
They're phenomenal. And so I talked with her and said, hey, I was young in my career. This is my first career change. I was like, oh, do I go and talk through this? Do I not? But I was very candid and I felt like that I could trust her enough to have this conversation. And so I went in, chatted with her and said, hey, I sought this opportunity out. Here's the positives. Here's kind of the negatives. But it's really weighing that I really feel like I should be taking this. And she was so supportive. She's like, you need to grow, do it, please go forward with it. And that led me to the opportunity to work for the global marketing agency, GMR Marketing, based out of Wisconsin. So I packed up my stuff from Kentucky and then moved all to
Man,
Wisconsin to take on a global marketing role with them.
dang. Okay. So first and foremost, like I agree with like the family aspect of just like whether it's a sports team or a track, a minor league team, like they're smaller staffs, and so you have that like family atmosphere. And I feel like being able to lean into folks, whether it's your boss or it is a mentor and stuff like that. Like I remember having that career change conversation with the boss and my minor league team. I was terrified, but it ended up being like they know that this is an opportunity for like you to hone your skills and learn. And if you stay around, amazing. And again, we'll see how you can grow. But 9 times out of 10, they're going to pretty much think that your talent is outweighed what we can pay you and your value. So please go flourish. And it's awesome to know that you had that support and that person's still in your life, man. I mean, those again, the relationships are so key with that stuff. So yeah, Tanya, shout out.
Yeah. Thanks, Tanya.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So with the marketing company, what role did you like apply for and like how'd you get started with?
Yeah, so I ended up applying. I applied to actually one role with them, which was more of an account executive, so kind of
Hmm.
mid-tier level with a NASCAR program that they were running for a client. The client was Comcast Business, but Comcast is a
Hmm.
went through the process of the interview, and they were kind of like, hey, look, you actually might be a better fit still in the NASCAR space, but with this other sector of Comcast. And so went through that interview process. I think the process took anywhere between 6 to 8 months of interviews.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, long
That's
time,
long.
but
Yeah, it's a long one.
it is. It definitely is. But, the thing about it is throughout that process was, again, going back to the relationship side, I would just not overbear it, but give it every 3 weeks and maybe send like a quick email like, I'm still interested. I wanted to show that I was being truthful about this. This was the only
Great
opportunity
advice.
and I would just keep touch with the HR or the hiring manager rep there. And so ended up, yeah, working on the Comcast business account to start in the NASCAR space as an account supervisor. So it was actually a step up. So even though, the longevity of the interview process took some time, but it worked out in the end.
Yeah, that's awesome. Was this like at the time, or is this before or after like what was it, Xfinity took over the Xfinity series, or what was Comcast's role in NASCAR at that time?
Yeah, they actually were just fairly fresh within their Xfinity Series relationship. So I think they were 2 years in, growing extensively.
Right.
But yeah, so as a part of the Xfinity relationship, or the Comcast NBC holistic relationship in the NASCAR space, specific on broadcast, Comcast is kind of broken up into a couple of sectors, but the two main ones was Comcast Business, which was
Hmm.
more focused on the C level, like CTOs, CIOs, very much tech heavy, B2B focused. And so that really, coming into
Hmm.
it, be transparent. I was like, I don't even know what B2B means. I don't know what I'm
Yeah,
doing.
right.
What's my
Yeah,
goal? But even working on that side really helped me out. And then you had the Xfinity side, which also GMR, really helped manage. They kind of took on the full scope of what that was.
yeah, that's wild. Because I mean, it's a global agency, and I'm just thinking of like from marketing and just with Xfinity coming on as a like namesake of a series, like all of the stuff that entails under that. So like, I guess briefly enlighten me and the listeners. 'Cause I'm genuinely curious now too. It's like it's a global brand. You have Xfinity. They're taking on the Xfinity series. Is their job, to your point, it's like cutting relationships with I mean, maybe the TV deal's already there with like NBC, but like bringing more sponsors under it to bring, commercial revenue or I guess, yeah, what was the goal of the marketing agency with like Xfinity coming into NASCAR with that?
Yeah, so with the Xfinity, we were really focused on how to enhance or drive signups essentially for Xfinity actually on that.
Gotcha.
So really focused on the experiential activations
Love
and
that. Yeah.
bringing in signups and trying to drive affinity for the brand itself. On the Comcast business front, the front there was kind of the business element. So it was working with the conglomerate of NASCAR sponsors. And so my main role actually when I first started was overseeing kind of our suites that we would activate. So bringing in
Right.
large clientele across the United States,
I
wherever
was
that.
gonna say, so that meant like every track because it's the whole series. Yeah. Yeah.
I was gone
I
36
was gonna say,
weekend. It was, but I was a young
wow.
gun. It just was perfect for me.
I was gonna say that sounds fun at that age, man, for sure.
It
Yeah.
was. I
Wild.
used to joke that I was basically renting an apartment that is a storage unit because I was never home. But the things that I had the chance to experience and see and do, again, small town kid, actually that was like my first flight I think I ever took was with
Yeah,
GMR.
wow, yeah. Dang, man, that's really cool. So I mean, again, yeah, small town kid and working for just these opportunities, man. Now you're literally going to every part of the country because I mean, NASCAR it's all over the country. I mean, every ends of it there. So that's such a cool thing. It's almost like you needed like an RV, just like a little camper home to just drive to these places, but
Yeah.
that wouldn't be fun. You need a driver like some of these IndyCar guys, man. But man, so that's fascinating. I really like seeing kind of like, you know, they're talking to somebody that was kind of at the intro of Xfinity jumping into it now. I mean, what's Monster Energy Series now, right? But it's still the Xfinity, or excuse me, it was always, are we talking, it's always the mid-level or not mid-level, but the like nationwide series or push cars, what I always think of from back in the
Yeah.
day. But
Yeah.
Was because it was Sprint and then Monster, but was Comcast or Xfinity ever at the top of it? I was kind of
It's actually a really good question. So, as a part of my role there, specifically when I was working with Xfinity, so we have the Xfinity series to your point, like the Busch series as back in the day. Then it became Xfinity.
Mhm.
But as my time with GMR, I had the opportunity to assist in negotiating the deal with NASCAR to become, one of the premier partners that they have. So now the way that it's set up is there's four kind of premier partners after Monster had departed. And so you have Geico, Coca-Cola, Busch, and Xfinity. So they're now also in the Cup Series, which is the top tier level. And then also they still have their solely owned series, which is like our Indy Next series here. It's the
Right.
series in the Cup. So yeah, I've had a chance to really manage a lot of the contractual discussions with NASCAR. Also, dip my toe a little bit into the negotiations and ensuring that we were getting the right ROI and value with all the other big
Right.
leagues. So I actually worked with the
Yeah.
NFL teams, NHL teams, you name it, wherever we
Wow.
the sponsors. Yeah, it's the agency side really did help teach a lot of things, and the agency route, frankly, is always a really good route to always look at too.
Yeah, it's I mean, obviously being an owner of one, to me, I'm ADHD and ADD, so I kind of like I'm all over the place, but I love learning about things. And I think being able to be in an agency, we're pretty agnostic because we work in different verticals, but that stimulates me in a great way because it's like, okay, what can I nerd out on now and see how we can grow? I mean, from a standpoint of an agency, at that level and growing, such a big brand, like what were some of the ways that you all were trying to drive ROI? And then I guess, to your point, track ROI or prove value of it with those like core brands. Cause those are big. I mean, that's a big chunk of money coming in. Any sponsor for racing, it's a lot, but you got to show that value very quickly in a way, I feel.
Yeah, and I still feel this way to this day. It's not just about putting a logo on something, right? It's how do you realize or really utilize that relationship or that sponsorship that you're in. So our biggest focus was we deployed 100 by 100 foot. It was actually four trailers, it was more of a marketing execution at each NASCAR track. And what we would do is host and bring in the fans to conduct signups for service. And if they conducted signups for service,
Yep.
they did XYZ, right? And so that was one way of tracking one of the KPIs was through signups. Managed a lot of the digital marketing assets as well. So conducting digital banners and conducting commercial spots to really, again, showcase how much Xfinity was into the space, why it's important. And hey, by the way, if you sign up for XYZ, as I mentioned, you get these benefits, right? And here's a deal if you sign up. So it was really focused a lot on the MDUs, as they would call it, or the signups,
Mhm.
essentially. And that was a huge KPI for them. But then it was also the exposure rate. So working with the Nielsen's of the world or, Sprouts and ensuring that from a social standpoint, broadcast standpoint, that we're getting the right value from the media exposure and
Sure.
showing that year over year growth. Additionally, with that was focused on military. So we
Mm.
developed and created a focus on military veterans and conducted a lot of programming around that. Comcast is very much focused on hiring veterans, and they've got a really
Yeah.
good program. So NASCAR, they've got their salute activation around Charlotte, and we really found a way to tie that in naturally and push that message. So focus on those core KPIs and showcasing again why we should be in this space because their clientele are watching and they're watching on NBC now. With Xfinity's telecommunication, they can
Yeah.
use their products to get more access to the sport they love.
Yeah. And, again, we're not sponsored by anybody, but shout out to Comcast Xfinity. That's powering my internet right now. I actually definitely remember like vividly the creative that was like used. I feel like again the way that you can use speed, tech, data, and how NASCAR kind of leveraged that in with how Xfinity was really rolling into like the different internet services and having the different fiber and all kinds of stuff there. It's such a cool like time, I think. And again, with racing and technology too, just to me, I like nerd out on that all day. And to see brands of that level, it's like, again, you got to think of like what's your demographic, but everybody needs internet and TV. And I guess was Xfinity at that point, were they nationwide? Had they grown to that level, like in all of those markets, or was it like you had to be strategic in certain markets.
You had to be strategic in certain markets between Xfinity and Spectrum at the time. Obviously, Spectrum
Yeah,
still.
that's where I got you. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So
North
certain.
Carolina boys down there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you see Spectrum branding at Charlotte, and that was
Uh-huh.
a jab, but there was nothing we could do. We're not in that
Yeah.
space. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we had to be strategic about it and really think through, okay, the enhancements of to where we're going to activate, what we're going to do. The strategic markets focused in on, but yeah, it was a great ride and really truly enjoyed a lot of the opportunities there. And one thing I'll note is, the biggest thing that on sports, and I could always table this too, but a lot of people come in and they go, oh, we're going to live the glamorous life. It's going to be a 9 to 5. I'm going to get to hang out with the athletes. I'm going to get to hang out with the drivers, and no, there's none of that. You
Yeah.
might have a chance to get around them, but I will strictly say it's a grind, but is it a fun grind?
I agree. Yeah, man. Hell yeah.
It's a fun grind. And as we talked about with the family, right? Like I grew up almost personally grew up in my career with a lot of people that I'm still very close with at GMR and Kentucky that I'm still, talk to on a daily basis, but we thrashed, we worked hard, but you also had fun. And
Mhm.
that's really key is to have fun with what you're doing, but know that you are going to put in the hours. You're going to have some late nights, but you're creating memories not just for yourself. You're creating memories for hundreds of thousands of people that could change their lives, right? And that's
Yeah.
still fun and just rewarding in itself.
I mean, dude, absolutely. Marketing is just that, telling a story and how can you connect with somebody else and build that relationship and trust. And again, hearing that, like I just was listening to an audiobook, and it was like Theo Epstein talking about, so for listeners, Theo Epstein, he's a famous GM. He broke both curses for the Red Sox and the Cubs, and his mentality to, again, treating people with respect and all of that is kind of the same, route that you spoke on there. But he talked about too, just like from a, analytical standpoint and looking at how, again, the information that comes out, and as a GM, he's not necessarily here to, yes, he developed this amazing proprietary analytic system, but it's about relationships and people, and him to really resonate with the job. He grew up a Red Sox fan, but he saw that, it wasn't about, again, making money. It was developing that lifelong, like the fact that he was able to break two generational curses for people. Like he saw that impact it, in the Red Sox organization, and he wanted to like do the exact same thing, not just for ego, but it was like, I want people that have struggled for 108 years and like some people that have never seen this, to go to their parents or great grandparents' grave and put a Cubs hat on. And so I think, like, again, man, it's you nailed it there, dude. And that's why I love marketing. I'm passionate about it. But if you can connect marketing with I mean, again, marketing's everywhere and everybody needs marketing. But if you can truly do it the right way, be a little bit different and creative, it goes such a long way. Like I think of it like, if you're rolling into Charlotte Speedway, and back in the day, there's literally, you could put a billboard right next to that Spectrum, billboard. But nowadays there's so many cool ways to kind of think outside the box there. And that competition, it's almost, again, it's added to the extra layer. And one more soapbox note I will note is, to the point of the glamour and all that with athletes, like you literally, when you get into sports and you start working, like you just see them, again, they're doing their job. And like, I was like, I never like want to ever, like I was in hockey, and most of the hockey guys are the most humble, coolest guys in the world. So they would want to shoot the shit with you. I've heard horror stories and stuff like that in other spaces, but really, like, everybody's got a job to do. And it's like, again, don't be a fan. You got
Yeah.
a job to do.
Yeah, you can be a little bit of a fan, but you gotta learn to turn it off, turn it on when you can,
That's
right?
that's a good point. Turn it off, turn it off. I remember like certain playoff games and stuff. I'd look over and the sales guys are all like on the railing, just freaking out. And I mean, nobody's buying tickets right now, but again, I guess to that point too, you ride the momentum of the team and just creating those memories internally as a staff as well. Like I fondly remember those days, and there's a lot of the folks that I worked with that I'm still in contact with, and actually like two of them are married, four or five of them still do regular vacations and trips. So, it's a tight group because you're there longer with them than your family, for sure.
100%. Yeah, and that's key. And it's about creating those relationships, and it's the relationships inside and outside the organization that are key.
Yeah, man. So I definitely want to, give you about like 10 more minutes to kind of pick your brain on some stuff. You've jumped from literally like an intern to ticket sales, and then you got into sponsorships and accounts and kind of servicing these relationships to the marketing side of stuff. And when did it hit you that you're like, this is cool. I like this marketing side of stuff.
Yeah, it definitely hit big time when I was at the agency because I had the chance to get creative, to get unique, to think outside the box of pushing the limits of the general norm of how do I take the maybe one to two to three specific needs of a brand and find unique ways to hit those marks and exceed those marks, right? And getting creative about that. And now even more so today, right? You got AI, you've got ton of different digital elements. Back in the day, it was, oh, we'll put an ad in the newspaper. No, now everybody's got a mini computer in their pocket, and now there's AI, and so it's a continued evolving thing that you get to really have fun with, and so
Totally.
really what's driven me into the more of the marketing space. So I've had that chance of, like I said, operations, sales, etc. But if you think about it, all things have to live together. And what I always say is you can't have sales without marketing. You can't have marketing without sales. You need to have operations to bring it all to life. And that's the cool thing about the team mentality. But definitely at the agency side, that's where I found my footing and have been, again, truly blessed to have the opportunity. I ended up, well, I guess, unfortunately, but ended up turning into a fortunate event during COVID. The agency unfortunately had to, let go of a good group of people.
Yeah.
Hit with that. Had the chance to actually move to a manufacturing side, which was building race trailers out of everything and managing the relationships with all the race teams there. That took me to
Wild.
took me to the stepping stone as to where I am today, where I
Oh,
grew that.
wow.
Andretti, who was a client of mine, saw there was an opening for director of marketing, just took the leap, did a little Hail Mary. And so I actually moved from Wisconsin back to Ohio. Now I've
Okay.
moved Ohio to Indianapolis here, and that's where I am today. But it's been a blessing, like I said, a few times, and it's really a great group here, and we're building something strong
Yeah.
as a global organization.
Yeah, so talk about that, really quick, taking that leap, because it is like, I mean, worst thing somebody can say is no, and you might regret if you never try. So it's like, again, if you saw that opening and whatnot. So tell me a little bit about that. I mean, was it specifically like it wasn't just Michael or Mario Andretti that you're talking to, but that, like, I'm joking, but maybe it could have been. But so from a standpoint of like taking that leap, like, I mean, you saw it, and how kind of was that process? Was it a quick process, or how long did it kind of take you to get up and going with those guys?
Yeah, I got to be candid. I think I sat there and read the job description 10 times and just kept feeling like, oh, I'm not going to make that. I'm not, there's
Imposter syndrome kicked in.
100% imposter
Yep.
syndrome.
Yep.
I self-doubted. I doubted myself. I felt, at one point I think I closed my laptop, moved on for the day, and it just kept coming back to me. And I was like, this is going to be more of my speed and what I'm looking for. And so, I again had to build that self-confidence. I had to get uncomfortable again. I got too comfortable. I had to get uncomfortable. And so
Yeah.
threw it out there through probably five conversations. It turned up that there was an opportunity. There was actually also an area of sales here that I was speaking about as well to potentially take on. But I knew in my heart marketing was really what I wanted to continue to grow in and continue my passion inside. And, had the opportunity to come here, do an interview, and landed it, which is
Damn.
phenomenal. And
Let's
it's
go, man. It is. It's crazy. Like, seriously, to see like your story from the start, man, and just to hear it to where you are now. I mean, it's such an iconic name. And I guess, tell me a little bit about that. Like, I mean, so what year was it that you joined Andretti? Like,
actually
2021,
uh,
2020,
2023, actually. So I was
2023. Okay.
Yeah, I was actually, so I've been here for a little over a year now. And it's crazy. When I first started here, they were like, hey, by the way, here's the keys. We're going through a large rebrand.
Yep.
We were going from Andretti Autosport, which, it was a unanimous name known even across the world.
For
But I
sure.
continue to grow within different motorsport sectors and continuing the conversations around, obviously the F1 news that has continued to come out, right? And so we've shifted to then Andretti Global, which came through with a new name, a new
Right.
logo, new
Huge
style.
facility.
Yeah, we are actually in the process of continuing to build our, 600,000 square foot
Yeah.
facility. Well, right now we're
Yeah.
in, I believe, 80, which so massive as well. But we're growing,
Man.
and that's what I loved about this is that there's tons of growth opportunity. And
Yeah.
spoke with the team here. The Andretti family name is obviously well known, but this is still, even though we're a large organization, this is still like a family business. Marissa
Hmm.
Andretti She's our BP. She's actually managing a lot of the build. But Michael's daughter, she works here with us, and obviously you still have Mario around a little bit. I mean, Marco still races for us in our
Yeah.
500s, and it's a very family feeling oriented small town as I like, right? Vibe, but
Yeah.
doing
What town is it headquarters in up there again?
Zionsville. So we're in Zionsville.
Okay.
We're meeting the Fisher, and
Okay.
uh,
Yeah, man.
doing a lot with that. So really, that rebrand was a large undertaking. A lot of the team came together. We have a lot of new folks that even started with me. I have a creative director that started with me as well, and we took the reins and we ran with it. And we're continuing to build that fan affinity. Obviously, the name to ensure that people understand who we are still in the marketplace. That we haven't really changed as an organization.
Yeah.
Building the equity, and my main goal and objective is to continue to build fandom of Andretti Global.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, I love that, Seth. So I guess before you get out of here with that, and I mean, obviously for anybody listening, I will put Andretti Global in the link, but it's go search that. I mean, come on, it'll pop up right away. But for you in the marketing space with all of these new theories and opportunities, I mean, you already mentioned AI, but like, what are some of the trends that you're seeing? Because one of the things that we talked about, before the pod was, again, it is a family ran organization and they're not a McLaren or a Red Bull or have these giant entities. It is about sponsorships. It's about racing and performance. So yeah, like what are some of the ways that you guys think outside the box or trends that you're looking to kind of lean into as you, head into the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think from even our side, it's really focused on the experience that we're providing to our partners and prospective partners, right? And as I mentioned even earlier on the sales process, but it's understanding the needs of our partners. And I think what's great about being more of that family oriented space is we have more flexibility and opportunity to do unique
Right.
things, prospects, and with partners that maybe some other organizations maybe can't do or aren't able to do. And so we have that chance. So focused on a lot of that and understanding their needs and utilizing our reach and assets to fulfill those needs. But, from the marketing side, it's seeing a lot of trends of it's that one-on-one interaction and people really
Totally.
that one-on-one. So it's doing AI text messaging. It's being, again, right to that computer in your pocket of communication one-on-one. So seeing a lot of that. It's people and fans really want that bang for their buck. They're fans of you. They're fans of your drivers, but you need to make them fans of you and fans
Yeah.
of the itself,
Yeah.
right? So how can we showcase our value and who we are in a different manner than maybe some other race teams?
Yeah.
And so looking at digitization, conducting giveaways or digital sweepstakes, always being top of mind through communication. So, a lot of focus on the digital space, a lot of focus on that fan experience side.
Right.
And it even goes down to just don't get fancy. I know the digital space is sexy, it's new, there's a lot of AI. Be with the fans on site as well, and
Oh,
do some
yeah.
fruit guerrilla marketing, do some cool shit with them, and just allow them to experience it in person. And that's really also part of what I'm focused on as well.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's so well said. It's like, how can you combine and complement each of those? And I think if you combine and complement each of those, it makes for such a progressive experience. Like again, I think that's why to me, I just love racing from the tech standpoint of like these cars are computers in a way and the data's there. And that data from a standpoint of just being able to, as a race fan, engage with that in real time, seeing how race teams are kind of giving that opportunity into the insights of it. But also, again, to your point, you are trying to have people, yeah, race car drivers are awesome, but it is about that A right there, man. And again, like you all have such an iconic name and global is a big thing and all of this stuff that you're getting into series wise, man, it's really cool to see again, just growth of Andretti, man. And again, I didn't know there was all of these sustainable series. And so I guess just last question with that is, do you see, or how do you see your marketing strategies kind of adjust with that? Like, I mean, because that's a whole new audience that you can bring in there as well.
It is. And I think, really from the marketing side, it's telling the stories as to everything that we're doing. We've got our ISO 14001, which is very difficult to obtain, as an organization, but as a race organization, that's the award for us to, showcase that we are being sustainable in the space, in
That's
lane.
incredible.
Yeah. From my
Yeah.
perspective,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into the technicals of it. I could be here all day. But we've got that. We're involved in a lot, even with this new build and some of the products and the materials. So telling the stories as to what we're doing,
Very
telling
cool.
stories about our partners that are also focused in the sustainable space as well. I know sustainability seems to almost become now a key word in every conversation, but you can talk about it a little bit, but it's also showcasing it too. So how do we tell the stories, but
Right.
also highlight the positiveness that we're bringing to the space to continue to make the world a better place? And so,
Yeah.
really thinking through that and focused on continued experiences around it as well, and telling the story about all these amazing race programs that are also focused in on it, which is great.
Yeah, dude. I think there's so much opportunity with that just because, again, it brings new eyeballs from a fan perspective, so many sponsorship opportunities too, because of the shift into sustainability or just newer emerging companies into sustainability. And I think like the growth of IndyCar, what they've been doing, there's a new TV deal coming up, what, with Fox next year or a couple of years. Yeah. So, I mean, it's growing, man. And again, to the point of everything else, like I truly hope that Andretti is one day on the Formula One grid at some point. Like again, it's a diehard Formula One fan, like and loving open car from IndyCar, like get Americans back in IndyCar. Like from a, I know Ford's doing some stuff coming up, but it would be truly sick to see that. But Seth, any parting words of wisdom for our listeners here?
Yeah, I would say, the biggest things from my perspective is continue to work hard, continue to network, keep your head down and working and grinding, but, just never give up on dreams. And that's the biggest thing from my perspective. And learn to be able to adjust and continue to just find your happiness. And that's key. And so, as I mentioned a few times on the networking front, I open it up to our listeners. If anybody, wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, my LinkedIn is open. Please connect with me. I'm always willing and happy to find time to jump on a call and just provide a conversation or some thought leadership as needed and learn what I can also obtain from you, right? And so that's key is to never stop learning. But Chris, I got to say, this is amazing. I hope that we can do this again. Actually, this
I
is
agree. We will. No, dude, this is the whole premise of this podcast is, again, talking to individuals in sports to see again how you got here. And I think everybody has a unique story, but your core principles, dude, and how you're like living your life and taking these risks and trying to grow is admirable, man. And it's we'll definitely talk more. I'm definitely wanting to kind of stay in tune with just seeing as a marketer and a race geek how Andretti grows this stuff, man. So best of luck with that and enjoy hopefully some downtime the next couple of weeks. I'm sure you're busy, but again, if races aren't happening and all that, hopefully you get some relaxation because the rest of the summer is going to be crazy, man. But we'll definitely talk soon.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you so much, and go Andretti.
Yeah, go Andretti for sure.